You know, you've probably noticed this in your own life. It really happens to all of us. You walk into your house, you set your keys on the kitchen counter, you turn around to take off your coat, and when you look back, well, they are just gone.
Oh, absolutely. It's like they just evaporated.
Right. Or, I mean, think about when you're reading a really brilliant mystery novel. Right as the detective is about to interview the one person who saw the killer's face, you turn the page and discover the witness has just vanished, completely into thin air.
It's the best hook in the world.
It really is. Nearly every great story, every gripping narrative, it begins with a void. It begins with something missing. You know, a train disappears off a straight line of track in broad daylight, or keys vanish. A loved one wanders away, an entire civilization is forgotten.
Or a dog never comes home.
Yeah, the dog never comes home. And sometimes what is missing is, well, it's hope itself. So, okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is a really massive one.
We have so much ground to cover today.
We really do. If you're listening to this, you likely have a deep appreciation for the mechanics of a great story. And there is honestly no medium that understands the mechanics of the Lost better than classic radio drama.
Oh, without a doubt. The golden age of radio was built on this stuff.
Exactly. So we have this incredible stack of sources today. It's a huge, curated collection of old-time radio broadcasts spanning from the 1930s all the way to the 1960s. We're talking Orson Welles and suspense, sci-fi like Dimension X, even Superman, all the way to domestic comedies like The Couple Next Door.
And, we aren't just going to recap these plots for you.
No, not at all.
The mission here is to really uncover why the concept of being lost has fascinated storytellers as audiences for decades. I mean, why do we care so much when something goes missing?
So let's set the stage a bit. When something goes missing, it totally disrupts the natural order, right? And audio storytelling is uniquely suited to this. Why is that?
Well, because the medium itself relies entirely on what we cannot see. I mean, think about it. In a movie, if a car is missing, the director has to show you an empty driveway. You are still looking at something. You are visually processing information.
Right, you get the visual confirmation of the absence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in radio, you're already blind. You only have what you hear, so you are forced to fill in the blanks yourself. It makes the uncertainty of the lost feel incredibly personal.
That makes so much sense. We should also talk about the historical context for a second, because the audience is listening to these shows in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They had a very different relationship with things going missing.
Oh, completely. I mean, radio was family entertainment, sure. But during the wartime years, the 1940s, separation was a daily reality.
Right. Millions of people were separated from their families.
Yeah, and the term missing in action was a constant looming terror. So the idea of searching, of waiting for someone to come back, that resonated on a deeply traumatic level.
But then you move into the post-war era, and that trauma shifts into this wild optimism, right?
Yeah, it becomes a fascination with exploration. You get the space age, aviation, archaeology. People were obsessed with finding lost worlds and pushing boundaries.
Okay, so let's actually jump into our first big theme here, because being lost isn't always this grand existential tragedy. Sometimes it is just pure comedy.
The domestic comedy of the misplaced. It's a classic.
It really is. And comedy is so often built around losing just ordinary, mundane things. We have this episode of The Couple Next Door from our sources. It's called Lost Car Keys.
Ah, yes. Peg Lynch and Alan Bunce. It's brilliant.
It is. So the setup is it's morning, and it starts with such good intentions. The wife, played by Peg Lynch, has made a New Year's resolution to be a better wife.
Which is already a setup for disaster in a comedy.
Totally. And she's making these special brown sugar rolled egg pancakes for her husband. Everything is perfect. Until the sudden realization hits, the husband reaches for his car keys, and they're missing.
And not just missing in the house.
No. He realizes he dropped them outside the night before, under 4 feet of snow.
Which instantly derails the entire peaceful morning.
Completely derails it. And what I love is how the script handles this. Because it's not really about the keys anymore.
No, the lost object is just a catalyst.
Right. It's just a catalyst for revealing all these petty character flaws. They immediately start unspooling these hilarious grievances. She complains about his annoying habit of saying, all the time.
And she brings up the wet towels on the bathroom floor.
Yes. And doing the crossword puzzle before she can get to it, it escalates into massive human drama over literally nothing.
And why is this still funny 80 years later?
Yeah.
Because human nature hasn't changed.
Yeah.
A minor inconvenience still turns into a referendum on a marriage.
Exactly. So the resolution of this episode is amazing. The husband is out there freezing, shoveling snow, and he gets desperate. So he turns it into a game for their little daughter, Betsy.
Oh, this is the best part.
He tells her whoever finds the keys gets a lollipop, which is just blatant bribery. But then, while she's digging, he reaches into his own coat pocket and finds the keys.
He had them the whole time.
The whole time. And does he let Betsy have the lollipop anyway? No. He claims the lollipop for himself. He takes it from his own kid, making her absolutely furious.
It's just spectacular parenting.
Right. But then the final punchline hits. He's standing there with the keys and his lollipop, and he realizes he left the actual car at the garage anyway.
He doesn't even have a car to drive. It's perfect. Comedy uses the lost object to deflate tension. We know it's going to end with a punchline.
Which perfectly transitions to our next source, because I really need to push back on something here. We have this excerpt from the Jack Benny program.
Rochester Lost at Sea.
Yes. Now, the setup here is a brief comedic take on what should be a massive tragedy. Jack is just wandering around his house, completely worried about being late for dinner, but he's entirely oblivious to the fact that his butler, Rochester, has been lost at sea in the Pacific Ocean for 2 days.
Adrift in the ocean.
Yes. And we find this out via a radio news broadcast playing in the background. Now, you have to help me out here. How on earth can a radio show treat a man literally lost at sea with the exact same lightheartedness as a guy losing his car keys in a snowbank? It feels absurd.
No, it is absurd, but that's the genius of it. You have to look at the rules of the genre. Comedy relies on established expectations. The audience implicitly knows that Rochester is not going to die.
Okay, so the stakes are basically fake.
Exactly. The rules of comedy dictate that the lost will always return, and they'll return with a choke. The real comedy comes from Jack Benny's legendary cheapness and self-absorption.
Right. He cares more about his dinner than his butler's life.
Yeah. And when Rochester finally calls in after being rescued, he doesn't talk about the trauma of almost dying. He jokes about having a gun in his face and finding talent he never knew he had.
He actually says, "It's the first time I ever lost a weekend on water."
Which is such a brilliant cultural reference to the movie The Lost Weekend.
It is. It's so smart. But you know, that shift from losing objects to losing people, it gets really serious when we step outside of comedy. Let's move into our second section here. Wandering innocence and the search for identity.
This is where the emotional weight really kicks in.
It really does. So we have this episode of the massive serial One Man's Family, written by Carlton E. Morse. The episode is called Lost Angel.
Sometimes called Two Lost Barbers Begin to Find Happiness. Morse was incredible at weaving these deep family dynamics.
He was. And this episode focuses on a 6-year-old girl named Alpha, played by Margaret O'Brien. And Alpha is this little child prodigy, a brain trust.
And she's stuck in the Picketing Institute.
Right, which is currently quarantined because Mrs. Caddy has the measles, so this little genius is just born out of her mind. She escapes the institute and decides to go search for magic in the middle of Times Square.
Just a 6-year-old wandering into the sensory overload of New York City.
Yeah, and she ends up tagging along with this rough guy named Mike Regan. But what's so fascinating is the perspective. To the adults, the police, the family, this is a nightmare. A child is lost in the city.
It's sheer panic for them.
But for Alpha, she isn't scared at all.
Yeah.
She's just exploring. She sees the neon signs and thinks they are absolute wonders. She sees a decorative dragon at a Chinese restaurant and believes it's a real dragon.
And the monkey.
Yes.
Hmm.
She sees a street monkey taking money and totally perceives it as a leprechaun.
It's beautiful, really. For the child, being lost physically is actually a discovery of a wondrous world. She had to lose her physical bearings to find her imagination.
Which is such a pure form of being lost,
Yeah.
accidental wandering. But then we have the complete opposite of that in our next source. Here's where it gets really interesting.
You're talking about Gunsmoke.
Yes, the episode Kitty Lost. Because the narrative here totally subverts what we just talked about.
It does. It plays with the standard Western damsel in distress trope.
Exactly. So Miss Kitty goes missing after taking a buggy ride with this fancy Eastern dude named Ratchmill.
A dude, in the parlance of the time.
Right, an Easterner. And so Matt, Dylan, and Chester, they naturally assume the worst. They think she's been abducted. They have to track her down to Indian Spring.
And the audio work here is fantastic. They talk to Ma Scrimmick, the stable owner, and he mentions the buggy has a broken iron rim.
So they use that to track the buggy. And Matt even tracks her footprints in the dirt, noting that she's favoring a turned ankle. He's reading the landscape like a detective.
They finally find her making smoke signals.
Yes, with her petticoat. It's this whole dramatic rescue buildup. But then we get the twist. Matt asks what happened, expecting a horrific kidnapping story, but it wasn't a kidnapping at all.
Not even close.
Rachmil just tried to hold her hand or make a move. She got furious, slapped him, jumped out of the buggy, and chose to walk away into the deadly prairie.
She chose to disappear.
She chose the danger of the wilderness over compromising her boundaries with this guy. She wasn't lost. She was deliberately distancing herself.
It's a massive statement on agency. The men searching for her viewed her as a victim, but she was entirely in control of her own displacement.
Which is so empowering. But what happens when you lose control entirely? Not just your location, but your actual self?
Amnesia?
Yes, the ultimate loss of identity. We have an episode of The Saint, starring Vincent Price. It's called The Case of the Blonde Who Lost Her Head.
Vincent Price as Simon Templar is just a joy to listen to.
He is so suave in this. He meets a woman named Dorothy Moore, who has total amnesia. She is found outside an art gallery with a bump on her head.
And the only clue is a compact with the initials DM.
That's it. She is a complete blank slate. And things escalate immediately because her guardian, a man named Schreiber, is found murdered in the library.
A classic locked room mystery.
Classic. And suddenly she's surrounded by suspects. There's her polo-playing fiancé, Tinsley. There's the criminal butler, Walters.
You always have to suspect the butler.
Always. And then the housekeeper, Mrs. Atkins, is found hanged. It looks like a guilt-driven suicide, like she killed Schreiber and couldn't live with it.
But Simon Templar figures out the physics of the rope.
Right. The placement of the rope proves it was murder, not suicide. Someone was tying up loose ends. But why is amnesia such a powerful tool here?
Because it's one of literature's oldest narrative engines. When a character loses their identity, they become the ultimate unreliable narrator, but not on purpose.
They don't even know what they know.
Exactly. It forces you, the listener, to discover the truth at the exact same pace as the protagonist. You have no bias because she has no bias.
That makes total sense. It levels the playing field for the audience. You know, this idea of losing your mind, it transitions us perfectly into our third section, the descent into the mind, hallucinations and buried memories.
This is where the audio medium really flexes its muscles.
Oh, absolutely. When the mind itself gets lost. We're looking at deep psychological fears here. We have 2 incredible episodes from the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. Let's start with Island of the Lost.
This one is genuinely unsettling.
It really is. It follows a 59-year-old man named Tony Bridges. He decides to surprise his 30-year-old wife, Martha, at the Hotel Paraiso in the Caribbean.
The age gap there is doing a lot of heavy lifting for his insecurity.
Oh, totally. He's already paranoid. And from the moment he arrives, everything is just wrong. It's a complete descent into paranoia. He starts experiencing these bizarre, impossible events.
Right. He sees a young lover in her room who then just vanishes.
Yes. And the physical environment changes. The bungalow furniture, which he specifically noted was made of fishnet, is suddenly solid bamboo.
And the flamingos.
The flamingos. They get attacked by this vicious flock of flamingos on a cliff. And he keeps hearing these relentless local drums that supposedly signal someone's soul going to Marco, the sea god.
It's sensory overload for him and the listener.
It's like a compass spinning wildly at the magnetic pole. You literally do not know which way is true north. You don't know if the island is cursed, if his wife is gaslighting him, or if he's just losing it.
And the fear of losing one's sanity is arguably far more terrifying than losing any physical object. You can't trust your own brain.
Exactly. And then the twist drops. He gets a letter from his doctor, Fritz, revealing that Tony is suffering from deteriorating brain tissue. It's causing severe hallucinations.
Which initially feels like a relief to him.
Right. He thinks, oh, I'm just sick. The flamingos weren't real. The lover wasn't real. And then he realizes that during the flamingo attack, he thought he pushed Martha off the cliff in a rage.
But he rationalizes that away too.
He does. He says, I must have hallucinated the murder too. She's fine. But then the police show up, and the twist is they actually found her body.
But not at the bottom of the cliff.
No. They found her strangled with a string of pearls in his own closet.
It's a brutal reveal.
It's so dark. He didn't hallucinate killing her. He hallucinated the method of killing her to protect his fragile ego from the cold-blooded reality of strangling his wife.
The mind will go to incredible lengths to hide from its own darkness, which connects directly to our other CBS Radio Mystery Theater episode, Lost Dog.
Yes, Julia Smollett. She undergoes this intense hyperamnesia therapy with a Dr. Furlock to uncover a repressed childhood trauma.
Because she has a crippling phobia of dogs.
Right. And she goes into this trance, and she recalls a dog named Topper and a little boy named Bobby.
And the listener expects the classic trauma narrative.
Yeah.
The dog bit her or bit the boy while she watched.
But no, she uncovers this incredibly deep guilt. She realizes that as a child, she deliberately ordered the dog to attack the boy just because she hated him.
She was the villain.
She was the monster, and that's the connection here. Sometimes we suppress or deliberately lose our own memories because finding them forces us to face our absolute darkest selves.
Exactly. The mind buries the memory for self-preservation.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about accidental loss. We've talked about the subconscious hiding things. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the art of deliberate concealment, missing evidence and missing trains.
This is a fun pivot. Moving from psychological hiding to cold, calculated physical concealment.
Right. It's the accidental loss versus the deliberate cover-up. We have an episode of Mr. Keene, Tracer of Lost Persons, the case of the missing witness.
Mr. Keene was such a staple of the era. The kindly old investigator.
He was. And this story follows Mary Blaine, this brilliant fashion designer. The script notes she's famous for inventing the short evening gown and the black dress.
Setting her up as a woman of immense status and intellect.
Exactly. And she gets tied to the murder of her sleazy fiancé, a portrait painter named Eric Plummer. But when Mr. Keene investigates, the focus isn't on the body. It's on what's missing.
The negative space of the crime scene.
Yes. There's an empty frame on an easel where a portrait has been violently ripped out, and the murder weapon is completely gone.
And Mary falsely confesses to protect her 18-year-old daughter, Bunny.
Right, the classic sacrifice. But Mr. Keene figures it out. He realizes the ripped canvas was hiding the killer's face.
Yeah.
And more importantly, he figures out where the killer hid the gun.
This is a great piece of deduction.
It really is. The killer hid the gun in the sanitation department's cinders. They just tossed it into a massive pile of street ash.
It's the classic Edgar Allan Poe or G.K. Chesterton method of hiding something. You hide a leaf in a forest, you hide a gray, ashy metal gun in a pile of gray ash.
Exactly. It's hiding in plain sight by matching the environment. But as clever as hiding again in some ashes, it is literally nothing compared to our next story.
The Lost Special.
Yes. An episode of Suspense, starring Orson Welles, based on a story by Arthur Conan Doyle. The premise here is just staggering.
It scales up the concept of a locked room mystery to an industrial level.
It really does. So we have a man on death row named Delaniac. He broadcasts his confession over the radio to blackmail the rich men who hired him.
He's basically saying, get me out of here, or I spill all your secrets on the air.
Right. And he confesses to a crime from 1925. A man named Louis Caratel hires a special private train to go to London. Caratel is carrying sensitive documents that could ruin powerful men.
So Delaniac is hired to stop him.
But Delaniac doesn't just shoot him. He engineers the disappearance of the entire train.
A locomotive, the cars, the crew, the passengers.
All of it. I mean, I have to stop here and just express sheer disbelief. How on earth do you hide an entire functioning train in broad daylight?
Well, that's the mechanical genius of the plot. Delaniac bribes the train crew, and then he utilizes an abandoned rail spur that leads to the Heartsease mine.
Which has a massive 200-foot vertical drop.
Exactly. So his men literally reconnect the abandoned spur to the main track just minutes before the special arrives.
They switch the tracks, and the train goes barreling down this forgotten path, flies off the edge, and hurtles 200 feet down into the pit of the mine.
And the impact triggers a cave-in.
It buries the train forever under thousands of tons of rock, and then the men just switch the tracks back before the next train comes along. It's insane. But why does a missing train capture our imagination more powerfully than a missing gun?
Because a train is the ultimate symbol of the rational industrial world. It's massive, it's steel, it runs on a schedule. When you make a train disappear, you turn a mechanical object into a ghost story. It shatters our faith in physical reality.
It really does. It's the sheer audacity of it. The scale is terrifying. But speaking of scale, let's move to Section 5, Sunken Continents and Forgotten Civilizations.
We are scaling up loss to the grandest possible level here.
Entire worlds, entire species. And this is heavily fueled by that post-war fascination with exploration and the space age that we talked about earlier.
Right, audiences were primed for stories about the unknown edges of the map.
So naturally, Superman gets involved.
Of course he does.
We have this episode of Superman called Lost Continent of Atlantis. And Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, finances an expedition led by this eccentric guy, Dr. Leander Cameron.
And why are they looking for Atlantis?
Well, Cameron hopes to find it, lost 9,000 years ago, to use it as a wartime submarine base.
Yeah.
Which is just peak comic book logic.
It perfectly blends ancient mythology with 1940s geopolitics.
It really does. So they travel down in a multi-depth submarine and bathysphere, and the dialogue is so funny. They're miles deep, and they're arguing over the Latin names of fish.
One of them thinks it's a mictifum punctatum.
And the other calls it an antimolecule. They're just bickering nerds in a tin can. But then they get attacked by a Nazi U-boat.
As one does in the 1940s.
Naturally. And later, a mile and a half down, they get attacked by a gargantuan octopus with arms like fire hoses.
It's pure pulp adventure.
It is. But, so what does this all mean? Why Atlantis?
Atlantis is the ultimate cautionary tale of hubris. A civilization that reached the pinnacle of advancement, only to be swallowed by the ocean in a single day. It speaks to the fragility of human achievement.
Which brings us to an even darker take on that idea. Dimension X. The episode is called The Lost Race.
This one is classic Golden Age science fiction at its best.
The space freighter Corellia lands on an uncharted planet, and the crew finds the fully intact ruins of a highly advanced alien civilization.
Intact being the key word. They weren't destroyed by a war or a meteor.
Right. They just vanished. And the crew finds this machine that projects thoughts. It taps into your mind. Danton, this crew member, looks into it and sees the girl he's intensely jealous of.
And Hal sees his father's house in Detroit.
Yeah. And Danton actually goes mad from his visions and blows up the ship's engines. But the horrifying truth is what Howell discovers about the aliens themselves.
He finds their skeletons in a burial shaft.
Yes. And he realizes they were anthropoid, ape-like, and the infant skeleton lacks a tail.
Which implies evolution.
Or mutation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The race had discovered atomic power, but they couldn't control the radiation mutations. They were terrified of what they were evolving into.
They saw their future in that thought machine, and they couldn't bear it.
So the entire race committed mass suicide. They chose oblivion over losing their pure identity to mutation. It's incredibly bleak.
It reflects the deep atomic anxieties of the era, the fear that our own technology will force us into a horrifying future.
But then we have a total contrast to that in Lux Radio Theater's adaptation of Lost Horizon. Shangri-La, starring Ronald Colman as Conway.
Yes, his plane is hijacked to Tibet, to this utopian civilization hidden behind the mountain Karakul, the Blue Moon.
And he meets Father Perot, who arrived in 1719, and Henschel, who arrived in 1803.
Because the people there live for centuries. But they didn't just hide to live forever. Father Perot foresaw a coming dark age of global war.
A storm that would wipe out all culture.
Right, so they built this sanctuary to preserve the world's art and literature. But the tragic catch is, if they ever leave the valley, like the beautiful Lhotsen, their true age catches up to them instantly, and they die.
So if you connect Dimension X and Lost Horizon, you see two civilizations reacting to the exact same fear of the future.
Oh, wow, I see what you mean.
The Lost Race chose death out of fear, but Shangri-La chose isolation to preserve hope. They willingly lost themselves to the world in order to save it for the future.
That is profound. Hiding in order to save. Which brings us to our final section today. Section 6, the ultimate search. Redemption and forgiveness.
We're shifting from physical loss to spiritual loss here.
Yes. We have this piece from The Greatest Story Ever Told. It's a dramatization of the parable of the lost coin.
Which is a beautiful biblical theme of searching.
It is. The text says, "What woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, doth not light a candle and seek diligently till she find it?" But the radio play frames it around a young boy named David.
Right. David steals and runs away.
He runs away, driven further and further down the road of evil by his own crushing guilt. But his parents refuse to give up. They search for him endlessly.
They're lighting the candle and sweeping the house.
Exactly. And when he is finally found, the message is so clear. There is more joy in finding one lost soul than in the 99 that never strayed.
And if you connect this back to everything else we've discussed, it's fascinating. Mr. Keene searches for truth.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Bridges searches for his sanity.
Right.
But Christianity transforms the idea of the lost from a pure tragedy into an engine for hope and redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Being lost is the prerequisite for being found.
It's the empty space making room for grace. It's just incredible. Well, to summarize this amazing journey today, we have gone from missing car keys in a snowbank to wandering children in Times Square to amnesia, buried spaceships, missing trains, and hidden utopias.
It's a testament to how versatile this theme really is. And I'd leave you with this final provocative thought.
Please do.
Perhaps every great mystery actually must begin with a loss. Because we can only measure the true value of a thing, whether it's a piece of silver, a memory, or our own innocence, by the empty space it leaves behind. When we have it, we take it for granted. When it's gone, we realize what it was worth.
That is so true.
While trains, continents, and civilizations may disappear, the greatest search has always been the search for truth, home, forgiveness, and hope.
I couldn't have said it better myself. The empty space defines the value. We want to invite all of you to explore the magic of timeless radio on your own. Go find these shows, turn off the lights, close your eyes, and just listen. Thanks for diving deep with us today.